Okay, I'm going to do a little small prayer and then we'll continue. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anam Shrunvannoti Visida Sadhanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhinam Vitrayavatu Ganeshaya Namah Saraswatyai Namah Shri Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, welcome guys. So we do this particular topic, the astrology of the face. Now it's part of it's called the Samudrika. Samudrika, I won't go into the nitty-gritties of the Sanskrit, but basically it's, if you break it up, it's Sama and Mudrika. And essentially, it is all about the face, facial expression, and it is part of a whole host of the way the face gets connected with our body. And it's not just like, flesh and tissues and blood and all of that, but it is also the subtle elements which earlier on, Prashant was referring to, the Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body. And there, the nadis there are like some 72,000, they are all like connected within the body, including very subtle elements, very obvious, and then we won't go too much into the thing, but essentially it's a very, very, so many energy vortexes within the body. It's like a huge storehouse of finally how it connects to the face, the hands. And that's why the importance of this, because a face speaks 1,000 words. It's there for you as a wrinkle, a gray hair, kind of a pimple on the face. They all speak volumes. And it is, you can make literally in Brihat Samhita by Varamira, there are chapters on the pimples on the face, where they land, if it's between the eyebrows, cheek, this, so on and so forth. And faces, obviously because it is all nadis, all connections, energy vortexes, it will express itself, through all the energy channels within our body. They all connect to the face and our hands. So hence it has an impact. Now even here you can see this, woman, like in ancient times, tattoos, right? People got tattoos of their Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata is your special deity, right? Usually now, like you see people all getting tattoos everywhere and all kinds of stuff, goth, moth, all kinds of weird stuff. But actually the origins of it, at least in the Indian subcontinent, has always been about a very deep connection with the certain elements on the body, which because of the nadis, they connect directly to our soul, our, prana within our heart chakra. And that is where Vishnu sits, and that is where our Ishta Devata should logically sit, right? And if you get a tattoo of like your special deity, which is the Ishta Devata, then it will connect, like certain, like in Gujarat, if you go, right? I'm not wearing anything, maybe some of this work is Gujarati, but essentially a lot of the Gujarat people, the village women from, the village women from Gujarat, they wear these, really low-cut blouses and wraps, and then they have to do hard work, and the skirt or their ghagra will begin below the navel, and they will have tattoos on their arms, and they do really hard labor all day long. And the importance of those tattoos is that it gives them some kind of a soul connection with their Ishta Devata. And typically they don't do like cat and dog and mouse kind of tattoos. It's typically like, like a Ganesh or a, Shiva tattoo or a Vishnu, always, or Durga, always either on the arms, because there are certain places on the body which directly connect you to your soul chakra or the root chakra. And that is, so it gives us volume. So even the face similarly will speak volumes about what state of mind currently you are in, right? Now, I won't go into what the modern, with all the Botoxes and all the wrinkle anti, fillers and so on and so forth have done. But that notwithstanding, there is something to be said about the way we look. Typically, this vast monumental works, Samudrika, is divided into the face reading, palmistry, the body language, and of course, astrology. So there are like 4 major canons, and the face reading is like a big thing, okay? In fact, when people do prashna, when people stand there, if you have like a client consultation, the time the client comes in and the way the client looks, whether they have like a sort of pimple on the chin, or they are having a bad hair day, or they are like out of breath, or they are literally sort of like, their mouth is curling downwards, and you can make out that they're sad and little bit on the depressive side. All these are simple lakshanas which we can read day to day. And as an astrologer, as anyone, not just an astrologer, any esoteric worker, it is well worth it to be able to read some faces, and some people do it very intuitively. Some people, it comes like this intuitively, but for some, it is a little bit of a study involved, and there are cues for that. And almost all the time, when you look at somebody's face, somebody will have thick, dark hair, or like, fine, light blonde hair, or, and, all of that will show up in the birth chart. 100%, almost always, it will show up. It will also show up if you do the prashna, that is a horary for that moment when the person walks in. And if it's a client, then it will show up even in the horary. So that is a power of the face. That is a power of, so it's not just about expressions, but it runs very, very deep. So here, typically the whole roughly speaking, this is kind of like the blueprint, as you say, the fundamental print that works, right? If you look at the whole face, is anybody familiar with the golden ratio, right? Right? So the golden ratio, they've done some kind of research, and they found like some millions of faces. They ran data, and they put little children, like little toddlers, and how were the toddlers reacting to certain faces. And they found that every time the toddler smiled or whatever, or had like a pleasing response to a particular face, it was almost always was because the person had some sort of resonances with the golden ratio. So that tells us a lot about so what is this golden ratio? We won't go into that, but what we will go into is that all of that has a bearing on how you look. Now, it could well be that certain planets are very strong in your chart, and we will see that it will show up in your birth chart as well. Certain planets will literally, if you learn to make those connections, it is such a helpful tool. such a helpful tool. So for example, hair, some people have like really thick, dark hair, which is like, at least in India, southern India, thick, dark, black, long hair is really coveted. Like everyone is sort of like obsessed with it, the whole country, right? Just as the whole country is obsessed with light, honey-colored, fair skin. It's period. I mean, that is the ideal beauty. Of course, you could well argue that, hey, but, what about, does that mean that some of the women in Ethiopia are not beautiful? That's indeed not true. We know that is indeed not true, because some of them are absolutely stunning in spite of being a different color. So it all depends on, I think, the cultural norms and social customs also, no doubt, have a role to play. But the planet still will not lie. If you have a strong Ketu in the chart, it's on the ascendant, it's aspecting the ascendant, then you almost always will have strong hair, or the hair will survive. Or are you looking at both of you?
Yeah, we've got North Node on the Saturn. Yeah, we've got North Node.
Okay, on your ascendant. Well, that has other implications, but it's still, you do realize that Ketu will be in the 7th house, right? Because it's always an axis. So it will aspect the ascendant anyways, right? So that explains your long thick hair.
That explains why we colour it blonde.
Yeah, but we are not talking about the color. Ketu's not, remember, Ketu's less about the hair, the color rather than, yeah. So, and then we have the forehead and the tongue. That the rules, Mercury rules it, right? Now, one of the key things is when we talk about Mercury, we talk about intelligence, we talk about various aspects. So it just makes sense that Mercury should rule the forehead and the tongue. Because what is tongue about?
Communication.
Yes, communication. And what is Mercury? It is the planet for communication, right? Then we come to the teeth and the eyebrows. Now this is really interesting. Normally, Sun rules the teeth, right? Typically. But in this instance, it is ruled by Mars. Well, Mars is the Karaka for it, and eyebrows too. So remember, like all in the olden days, there was this, I'm not talking of like in the 60s where the whole fad was like super thin eyebrows, not the bushy ones. It also shows then how women, especially for women, how their relationship to Mars is. Like some women like thick eyebrows, some women, and often even in the Garud Puran, it is said that women who have like joint up eyebrows are like really inauspicious, like. And now I'm not saying like, okay, now you have to start waxing, or, by all means, if you like it, go for it. But we are talking of the basics. The inherent tendencies are that it is not very auspicious because they tend to bring, not so great luck, and, because they're quite feisty and so on and so forth. So those are sort of general. Now you would well say, well, how do we generalize? Well, we can't generalize so to such an extent, especially in this day and age where we barely recognize at least some of the Hollywood stars anyway, from what they began to what they've ended up with. So yes, so it is a bit of a, kind of difficult task. But the basics won't change because the planets will not lie. And if there is a planet which is really strong in your chart, it will show up on your face. So the cheeks, I'll come back to the luminaries. So the cheeks are Venus. Remember, like in the Victorian age, was it like where you had like all the rouge, like very outwardly they would put like red color. And this is true even in the Indian cosmetic industry. Like traditionally, Indian cosmetic industries was very, very advanced. I mean, they did like natural, the kumkum, which is a red color, where you use in temples and everything, is actually a natural substance. And they would actually turn kumkum into lipsticks and into like color on the cheeks. And it was really important. Even in the Victorian times, women would slap themselves just to have color run, the blood run to their cheeks, right? So what was that about? That's because they wanted to enhance their Venus. You see, and that is really important. Sunken cheeks for a woman was not an option. Not great option. Well, of course, times have changed. And anyway, then we come to the nose. Now, the nose is all about our connection. It's about what we can smell. Now, the nose is also represents the earth element. So it is kind of ironic that Jupiter should rule it, or he's the karak of the nose. But then the interesting thing about nose is that the human nose, mostly we appreciate like dogs and cats for their sense of smell, but the human nose has the capacity to be able to smell up memory, like can recall up till 1,000,000,000 smells, 1,000,000,000 variety of smells. That is a staggering number. And this is not my concoction. It is there. It's scientifically, it's there. It's just that over centuries, we have not developed it enough. That's what has happened. While we have like attribute like, oh, dogs can smell and go and smell all the dead bodies or whatever, but actually the human beings have, and in the ancient times, people could smell when somebody is going to die, and there would be smell of death in the air. So you could literally predict with the smells what kind of experience you're going to have for the day or for the week, and so on and so forth, which is pretty remarkable, isn't it? But we have lost it, we've kind of lost touch. As Prashant said, the elements, we have to sort of reconvene ourselves with the elements. So often you will see certain people with like huge noses, they have very strong noses. Maybe they have Jupiter exalted. Margarita's going, yeah, but a strong Jupiter aspecting the ascendant can also mean that, you have a very scholarly disposition, you like learning, constant learning. And then the chin is Saturn. One of the key freedom fighters, the Hindu king warriors from Maharashtra was Shivaji. A lot of you may have heard. And he's often depicted in like a very strong chin pointing outward, like a really strong chin. So people with strong chins will have very strong sense of responsibility, because that shows that Saturn is very strong in their charts.
What about dimples in the chin? Because I've got one. So what would you say about that? And I just wonder how, because in Mudras, Western astrology, they always say a dimple chin is in the chin is luck. So I wonder how it works in Vedic if you with Saturn in the chin with a dimple. Does that?
I think it's very auspicious, certain marks on even the moles, but the moles are a different category altogether. There are chapters and in the great monumental text of Parashara, the Vedic astrology. So in terms of any markings on a certain place, like moles or red spots or anything, which like birthmarks, people have birthmarks, right? Oh, you do? What is that? Is it? But is it like a mole or is it like a marking?
No, it's a mark.
It's a mark. Okay.
But if we go back to back in history,
yeah,
they used to burn people who was born like me.
Oh, really?
It was considered like a witch or like a devil's mark or things like that.
That's true. The witch.
So whenever there is markings and moles on the face, then often that part is accentuated, but that is a whole new study, or rather whole old study, and there we connect with the Drekanas and so on and so forth. And also the moles are like a protection, especially if they are dark moles. They are like they have a huge protective ability, you know, and it also accentuates where it is. So for example, if you have the mark on your cheek, like you do, and you have that mark, so that can often mean that because it is red in color, right, it's like a reddish thing, it can often mean like a combination of Venus and Mars.
That Turkish lady was interested in that, wasn't she, back in the day?
Huh? Yeah. So again, like I said, we are talking of the face, but yes, all marks all over the body, especially moles, is a big study, and we do it. Yeah, it's a totally another subject. But here we are just sticking with the basic fundamentals of the face, which anybody can look at and see. Anyway,
birth mark is different from a mole, right?
Yeah. They are the same though. Both are, but some moles come and go. Okay, so finally we come to the lips and mouth, Rahu. Okay, I think it's having a Rahu effect, all this. So the lips basically is all about what? Food?
Pleasure.
So essentially, the mouth is like a big, if in the north node of the moon is where we desire a lot of things. And it is also connected in the mythology with Ravan. Ravan had 10 heads. So Rahu always carries this whole thing about thinking too much, like enough for 10 heads. So 10 heads of his will be active. So obviously if there are 10 heads, there will be 10 mouths. So that's why the Rahu thing is like all about like gluttony and give me the finest food, give me the
a hunger for something.
the hunger for hunger.
You're stuck in the oral thing.
Yeah, and give me more and more and more. So all of that is Rahu, okay? So, and lips, Rahu. So people, over time, often you see women who, or even men, over time, their lips go like thinner, and so it also shows a lot of like evaporating of desires and karma and slight negativity, because a child, if you look at, is usually almost always, no child is born with thin lips, right? Yeah, but on an average, by generally, okay? But over time, as one ages, one's lips become like, so often that shows like how many desires you have exhausted. So all that is connected with Rahu. Yeah, go on.
What about black people? Most black people got very big.
Yeah, but that is Rahu, right? I mean, some cultures, again, like I said, some cultures will have.
In Korea, the face readers regarding that like different sort of geographical things, it's always about proportion. It's all, so that's a standard. So for instance, as East Asians, they tend to have hooded eyes or smaller eyes than, let's just say, Indians, right? Because Indians have like really, on average, really big eyes. But there's a set norm. So it's like, is it big for an Asian? Is it small for everything? Is so you can have bigger lips. Yeah, it's bigger lips than an Asian. But in Africa, do you have big lips? No, that's the norm, right? So you always have to do that proportionality. That's what the Korean face figure said. So,
there are people with thin lips, though, and they're supposed to be very mean-spirited.
But if you're Scandinavian and people naturally have thinner lips, then once again, that's. You have to look at proportion.
Yeah.
I agree.
So now we come to the sun, moon, and what all does it signify? The right eye, the luminaries is always right eye and the left eye. So one thing is assured, if let's say as a child you have hurt your right eye or the left eye, there may be an afflicted sun or the moon. And so the left eye almost always is, the moon, and sometimes we even take overall karaka is also Venus, but that's kind of as you go in detail. So often you may find that sun and moon are not really afflicted in the chart, but let's say Venus is, then almost always you may have at some point, some eye issues, or maybe the Venus is debilitated, or maybe it is badly placed in not a very nice house, maybe a 8th house or so, then it may suddenly give afflictions for the eyes. So remember that. Yeah?
I don't know if in English, but in Italian, they say if somebody's got a squint, they call it Venus squint.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
know if it is like, by knowing me, I have a debilitated Venus and I have a squint.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because my daughter, she's very popular now, and she's got debilitated Venus.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So some people with eye issues, the lazy eye as they call it and all. So all that is, Venus of maybe afflictions, but it could also be luminaries afflicted.
My son, is the right eye, maybe,
Yeah.
but, in my case, because of my master should be the left,
Left
but
eye.
the left is a right.
Yeah.
So it's more Venus.
But usually any combustions with the sun will almost always have an impact on the sun. It afflicts the sun. You see, anything with the sun, if you have and the planet is combusted, usually nobody talks about that, no one pays attention, but the sun can get afflicted too.
So the
And
more,
sun afflictions are very difficult to come out
so
of.
more planets are with the sun, combusting.
Yeah.
So weaker becomes.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So, it's not just the moon that gets weak, it's the sun also gets, yeah. Anyway, so Mars is eyebrows, fighting and all of that. Now, really feisty men and women will almost always have strong eyebrows, right? So, and that's why in the olden days, even now, you always tell, have an eyebrow pencil. It's always good practice to accentuate your eyebrows. You don't want them to, just too thin and, but does that mean that it will have an effect? Up to a point. I'm not saying it will suddenly your Mars is going to kick into action and become great. I'm not saying that, but it will have an impact. Then Mercury is the forehead, intelligence. I went through that. Nose, ears is Brihaspati or Jupiter. Venus is cheeks. So be good to your sisters. If you want to keep your Venus healthy, be good to your daughters and your female friends. Because if you want the Venus to be good. And same thing goes with Saturn, it's the chin. If you want to find, take responsibility, then, be nice to old people, sick people. Every now and then do some seva, do some kind of donate your time for those kind of people. And you will be surprised how quickly Saturn gets pleased. Rahu and Ketu, of course, cross the borders, take a risk sometimes going beyond the boundaries of your country or whatever. That's Rahu, it'll have a very strong impact. Also donating to other cultures, anything, it can be knowledge or any kind of donation will help. And Ketu is, of course, the Moksha Karaka. It rules the lineages, your grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and so on and so forth. So we see an interesting thing here. The face or the lagna. If you see here, look at the woman, both the women, okay, the fat cheeks. Now, often if you have natally fat cheeks, right, it's actually Venus and Moon coming together. And some may say, oh, it's so fantastic, it's so lovely, but actually it's not, especially if you're a young girl or a young person. Fat cheeks often indicate in a young person some kind of, especially for women, some kind of calamity or some kind of problems that they may encounter, early on. So just be careful before rejoicing that you have fat, but it has to be super fat cheeks, right? I'm not saying just because somebody is a little bit overweight, and if you have fat cheeks because of that way, I think most of us will qualify. So don't worry about that, okay? So anyway, so the eyes express beauty, and so obviously afflicted sun and moon will have an impact on the eyes. Ketu is hair. So look at, it's interesting, the French beard. Okay, now this is really, it gets interesting. They did some kind of a survey and they found that top billionaires had almost always had never had like beard, especially the French beard, only in this region. Now, why would that be? So when hair is what? Ketu, right? And chin is Saturn. So when you put both of them together, you're making Ketu and Saturn combination. So even if you don't have it in your birth chart, Ketu and Saturn combination may often result in some kind of a loss or something. So if you have that combination, then you should steer clear of having a French beard. Advertise it, because on an energetic level, it will make you not so wealthy, or even if you're wealthy, it may make you lose your wealth. So just remember that. And another thing is, but suddenly if you have full chin everywhere hair, right? Like on Guru Gobind Sahib, as you can see over there on the right hand side, then it is fantastic, because now Venus is covering Venus, the cheeks. So Venus has got involved. So it's Venus, Ketu and Saturn, right? So it's fabulous, right? So then we come to the head, the crown. You know how in the olden times, the head was what? What was the head? Ketu, right? And all the hair in the head, and Jupiter is gold. The Karaka for Jupiter is gold. So literally you had the crown, and so often people wear fancy hats and all that. So it's quite auspicious to wear that, because then it's sort of like accentuating the headgear and all that. Yeah. You know, headgear and all that. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, it's not to do with astrology really, but the fashion for the last 5-6 years for men is to have beards in the Western world. I mean, that has been a very strong feature.
Now it's just moustaches, isn't it?
No, it's
Quite a lot of that 70s moustaches.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's huge.
And full beards as well.
The
Yeah.
barista beard.
Yes, late
Barista.
19th century.
But see, that is all like, yeah, but that's all combination, isn't it? Of Rahu and Shani and Venus, all of it, you know. So that makes you actually quite wealthy, because Venus has got involved. So you're willing to put in the time and the effort and all that for making. So these people become very powerful, especially if you have Ketu Jupiter, which is like if you are wearing constantly some kind of headgear or something like that, because that makes it very powerful, because then you are scholarly, you are, you know, so on and so forth. That doesn't mean that you will start wearing a gold crown and a gold crown. You know, it's kind of funny, right? Now, the ears are Ketu, right? The ears are Rahu. And one of the karakas for ears is Rahu. So often Mars is associated with cutting and chopping and all of that, and surgery. So if you pierce your ears as an infant or a toddler, then the possibility of lengthy surgery is pretty much mitigated if you have ear piercings or nose piercings and so on and so forth. That's quite nice, isn't it? Yeah? That's why in India, we often, all the toddlers have ear piercings. Like total ears are always there. And they say that if you do want to make any piercings on the face or anywhere, on the nose, then you should choose Dhanishta, Mrigashira and Chitra Nakṣatra for the day when it is. So set up an appointment then, for your children especially. Yeah.
What size of the nose?
Oh, it doesn't matter any size.
Yeah.
Hey?
She already had her nose.
Yeah, that's
I
what.
know about it.
Yeah.
But what about men having piercings? Because obviously back in the day,
Yeah, men's fine too. Yeah.
We used to have the earrings.
Yeah.
My dad did.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't wear any.
Yeah, that's
it's
okay.
It's not a modern thing. It's very
old. I know. Ear piercings are very old. I told you, right, that if you have, as a toddler, if you get ears pierced, then it's basically like a combination of Rahu and Mars. So Rahu and Mars combination is often accidents. You know, so if you are already going towards that kind of like, you know, violent thing like piercing for a little toddler, it's tough to see it. Then you're already, that chances of that is mitigated. So that's what it is, yeah? So this nose to ears, has anybody familiar with this Indian thing of nose to ear, right? Yeah. So the long one, that is very, very, but it is very powerful remedy as well for, of course, because it's connecting the nose and the ears. So it's like Jupiter and Ketu, and Jupiter and Rahu and, you know. Yeah, so anyhow, so then we come to the broken teeth. Bad Mars, if you want to improve, make sure your teeth, and especially Mars, very strong Mars, or people who are born on Tuesdays will have a problem with body odor. I'm not saying that they will emit a body odor. That's not what I'm saying. But they will have an issue with, like, they will use a lot of perfumes and soaps and all that. So just be careful that you don't use too much of that, but use more natural stuff, because you want to maintain Mars. Mars is bad smell in the teeth. And that's a complete, absolute no. God help the dentists, I tell you, huh?
Somebody has problem with
Yeah, so that's Mars, right? Bad smell in the teeth, dental area is bad news, because that shows that your Mars is so heavily afflicted. Then Mercury is good for you, because you need, if you want to improve on it, make sure, look at the screamings going on there, you know, turn it down. Rahu is ears, and often they said the worst thing to afflict a person by, in the olden times, they would do Rahu, chop the ears off and chop the nose off, and the two key things are chopped off. You know, it's always been there, like any king giving punishments and all of that.
It'd be interesting to look at Michael Jackson, actually, as well, because his nose actually.
Yeah, Jupiter Rahu conjunction.
Did they?
Yeah.
Just something.
They just kept eating away.
Mercury?
No, but she said it was
You were saying Mercury.
I think if you want to improve communication, then don't use too horrible words, you know, like swear words and all that. Yeah, it will spoil your Mercury. Yeah.
Did you just say before, if you're born on a Tuesday,
Yeah.
did you say something about the bones or the
Body odor.
Body odor.
Okay.
Because they are all obsessed. People born on Tuesdays typically tend to use a lot of perfumes and scented soaps and all that. And they should, but as long as they don't have too much chemicals in it, because then it'll have a worse effect on the Mars. Okay, so now look at the hair thing. Now this is another thing that usually we say long hair, thick hair and all that is really strong Ketu, but actually Ketu represents the brahmacharya, or people who have given up from this world, and, you know, or young children who have kind of taken sannyas, you know. And so if you see on the left hand side, they have this little string of hair, and they shave off the whole head, right? And that is their connection with the universe and beyond the universes, because in any annihilation of entire planet, there is the Saptarishis who will come in a boat. The Matsya avatar will come in a boat and take you by that tuft of hair and drag you out to other worlds. And that is the reasoning behind having that little tuft of hair. So that represents Ketu. So all the rest of it, like all long hair and thick long hair and all, that is all like, okay, great, that's for enjoyment. But the real thing behind it is that single tuft of hair should be so strong enough to pull you from one loka to another.
So traditionally,
Start working on growing my middle.
Yeah.
women keep that tucked up hair. Would be the men, right?
Yeah.
So how? What does that tell the women? What is
Yeah, but that is still, it's still fine. And look at this bad hair day. Here, look at this hair here. Okay, so now let's look at Emma Stone. So anyone seen Emma Stone?
Now we go.
That's Emma Stone. She's alright.
Yeah, so she's been voted as one of the top prettiest women. So where is her Ketu?
Leo.
And see her moon Venus together. The Rahu is in the 7th house. So beautiful lips, beautiful eyes. The sun is also aspecting. So all of that is very powerful. And sun is also her Atmakaraka. So anyway, we'll quickly breeze through. So the chin, look at the strong, beautiful eyes and prominent nose.
Who's that?
Mila Kunis.
Oh, she's
So again,
amazing.
there's Jupiter on the ascendant. Check this. Anyone remember that?
Yeah.
Eyebrows.
She's famous for her eyebrows.
Yeah?
Lots of other things, yeah.
You remember that? So look at where her Mars is. It's on her ascendant. Can you see that?
Yeah, everything's in one space, isn't it?
Strong Sun and Saturn. So you see the Mars is strong, right? Let's see Nicole Kidman.
She's had plastic surgery.
No, but look at her hair.
That's Rahu.
Look at her hair. Very strong hair. Nicole Kidman. So you can see the Ketus on her ascendant. Right? Then look at Mick Jagger.
Oh, it's all not much, yeah.
Moon Saturn.
Not ashamed.
Yeah, big nose, big lips.
And what about
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves? If you can look at Keanu Reeves.
Ascendant Mercury, Sun. In Leo, Sun?
Yeah, can you see Keanu Reeves with Sun and Mercury on the ascendant? Right? So what does that mean? So essentially, if you see it's opposite Saturn, and that also indicates like a very strong Saturn. And what was his role in the Matrix? Very Saturnian, right? Very, very Saturnian. Okay, then we have the last one. This is Amitabh Bachchan. Again, he has a strong Sun, Saturn, and Rahu in the... and Saturn aspecting it. So very, very like deep voice, all that Saturnian quality is coming through in his face, no doubt. And my last chart, this guy, Van Gogh. So remember when he cut off his ears, or in a fight he got into and his ears were cut? And what happened? So what is ears Karaka? Who's the Rahu? Yeah? No, Rahu. And Mars is also aspecting his Rahu. So what happens? His ears get cut. And this is his self-portrait, right?
He was also indulgent on lots of cannabinoids and alcohol.
I'm going to just do one or two mudras because this is like a takeaway for you guys. One nice mudra for you to take away. The Ganesh mudra. It's an offering. He's very pleased just with the offer of this. And I'll do the last mudra, which is the Narsimha mudra, which is the protection mudra for you. So essentially, very lightly put these two and hold these 3 fingers together, and that is the Narsimha mudra. So it's warding off all the black evil, all the magic, black evil. No, this way, upright. Yeah? And hold this in this very lightly, not tight, just lightly. Upright. Okay, thank you very much, guys, for listening.